You heard it here first.
We finally made it. Welcome to RTBTH. Real talk beyond the headlines. It's about to get real.
RTBTH, 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 RTBTH. 5 letters, 5 words.
Spell it out.
5 letters, 5 words.
Spell it out.
5 letters, 5 words.
Spell it out.
Good talk beyond the headlines. Beyond the headlines.
Yo, Tune, welcome and welcome back, listeners. What's good?
What's going on, Herschel? Hashtag
Yo.
RTBTH.
Yes, sir. So, we were talking off pod about some things, a lot of changes in technology recently. Of course, we did have a previous podcast where we talked about, some machine learning and AI and how technology, again, was changing. But most recently, within probably the past year or two, I would say that AI has really kind of taken over people's lives in some of the best and worst fucking ways. So very excited today to get more into some of the topics that we have to discuss. And the first thing that I really want to just kind of ask you is like, bro, how do you use AI?
Man, well, that's a good question. Let me formally say, by the way, this is hashtag RTBTH, real talk beyond the headlines. It's your boy Tunde and it's your boy Herschel.
Yes, sir.
But
Forgot to introduce myself. My bad.
At first, when it first came out, I guess I didn't really use it too much. But then I did end up using it a little bit to write some code for my dissertation, which was very helpful.
Ooh, did you disclose that in your dissertation?
Do I have to?
I don't know. It depends on when you did it and whether or not they had caveats about that. So for now, when I do, peer-reviewed publications and stuff, you do have to disclose. But I don't know if that's because it's a publication versus a dissertation, which is
for data analysis. I mean, I'm not saying it helped write the dissertation. I'm just saying it helped program in Python and Jupyter Lab to, deal with spreadsheets and things like that. But,
okay, yeah.
But I mean, that was kind of like more of a learning process because I obviously had to verify the validity of the dissertation and, and that kind of thing. And then most recently, I've been using it to write a shit ton of cover letters. Actually, I'm going to scratch that because technically still on the job market. And I don't know if I want employers to know. But
bro, they do know. And they also don't read cover letters is what I've been informed. I've written a ton of cover letters too. You leave it in. I've written a shit ton as well. And I don't think anybody is ever even looking at them. They're looking at our resumes and, other things, characteristics.
Well, it's AI that's reading the shit anyway.
That too. Yeah. So
and then, I'll occasionally use it here and there to do search, like internet search. But honestly, I'm starting to use it less and less because now I just feel like I can't verify the truth of what I'm doing and using it for and searching. One thing that I've found very helpful is finding like how to basically just to give me instructions for using different software, like finding keyboard shortcuts, because that stuff, I don't know, for some reason that's like hard to research. If you say I'm looking for like a keyboard shortcut or I'm looking for instructions for how to use a software, like I use Zotero, the citation manager, a lot, like every day pretty much. And sometimes, oh man, Zotero is the best. It's just like
the best.
It's like a pocket knife, man, for research. Just such the top 3 software ever. And I'm putting it in the same category as like Windows, like the Windows operating system and Android.
Whoa.
Like Zotero is right up there, but I digress. So, sometimes like I want to figure out how to do some things in Zotero, like whether I want to put my files in the cloud or keep it on the hard drive. And so I'll look up instructions, like it'll give, very specific instructions instead of having to go look through all the websites and Reddit and different forums and things like that. And, like I'll sometimes like ask it for like, does Northeastern University provide downloads for like Adobe or some other software instead of having to go to the Northeastern website? So searches, but more and more I'm feeling less like I can use AI in a that came out awkward. Less and less I'm feeling like I can use AI in a way that I feel as if it's accurate and truthful. There's the problem with hallucinations and all that, so.
Yeah. You probably find that like sometimes, so I have similar use cases where I'm looking things up. It's very good at like compiling a bunch of information that might be kind of vague or not necessarily well researched, a bunch of different sources. Like you said, some internet forums, different things, maybe like a Stack Overflow or something like that, and summarizing it down to something that, you can then apply to a specific use case. But what I've also found, kind of what you're alluding to here, is like now, because there's so much information and a lot of misinformation and just a lot of nonsense and different types of things that are like very similar possibly to like what you're actually looking for, but not the exact thing. And you have to spend so much time going back and verifying and checking and double checking that it becomes a waste of your time, utilizing this AI. And again, for the listeners, we're talking about generative AI, particularly in this aspect. I want to talk more about some, other larger aspects of AI, because they're, just like our machine learning podcast, the terminology surrounding AI has, again, gotten out of control to where it's a lot of techno speak, again, for CEOs to make, new launches of different things sound good so they can, cash out, which fair. And, we're all trying to cash out. I'm trying to get bought out by Google right now, honestly. But I fear that AI, and I want to kind of get to this in just a second. I fear that AI is starting to plateau in its immediate usefulness, particularly the generative AI. And
Yeah.
as we describe kind of the usefulness, I do want to also talk about the toxicity, because I did not hear you state that you were using it for anything relating to your mental health. It's a lot of like research or job, search utilization.
Yeah.
And I know we both looked into some of this, seeing how others outside of, ourselves, again, we are very niche in being PhD scientists or whatever, doing very particular and specific things. You're looking up stuff for your dissertation, but generative AI is available for everyone that essentially has an internet connection. The free version of ChatGPT is out there before you were even talking about the higher levels where, you have the voice response and, different companions that are created, not to mention, Google Copilot and, all these different things. But let's talk about how other people, we've read about are using AI out here in these streets.
Yeah. Well, a few things as we go down this list of things that we have of the AI toxicity. But the title of the podcast is Glaze You to Oblivion, because, through our conversations as friends in the group chat and whatnot, we kind of have started to speculate on whether we're slow walking into the collapse of humanity and society with the rapid advancement of generative AI, which I'm starting to feel, especially some of these stories I'm going to get to later. But quickly, one thing I will not use AI for is my actual writing and research. And I wrote an article that was published on madinamerica.com that was published in April. It's called America's Unhealthy Relationship with Antidepressants, which is a whole other podcast, like 5 or 6 or 10 podcasts of a topic right there. But I was like, during the writing process, I was thinking like, could I at least use AI to help me find articles to present my argument? And it just, like, I would like type in like find articles that discuss such and such, and it would just give me a bunch of bullshit, some topic or articles that were completely irrelevant, some that were relevant, some made up articles. And then if I just did the same thing in Google Scholar, I found like all the information, like, in Google Scholar, you just type in keywords. I found all the information I needed. So, and then I will absolutely not allow it to write anything for me. Although I do have a caveat to that, which I can explain later. But yeah, so I guess, Herschel, take it away.
What I've seen, yes, I will take it away. So you were kind of alluding to this. People, let's say you're not using ChatGPT for a resource. Let's say, you're in a society that has recently come out of a pandemic where there was an ample amount of social isolation. You're looking for answers and responses, and you're a young person. You could be an older person too that is not AI literate, because even now, if you're just Googling things, the first responses that come up on Google are AI responses. It's trying to anticipate what it thinks you are looking for and how it can help. That's, the way that I guess Google is trying to, or I don't know if it's necessarily Google, but that's the way they're trying to identify value. And they have seen that general Google searches that are utilizing, the search algorithm are dropping compared to what people are utilizing AI for, to just essentially search for things. But what we've seen is that people are using it for therapy. There is a particular article that I sent to you, and I know you have a couple of other ones, but this one was hella fascinating to me on a bunch of different levels because, again, I think it speaks to the society we're in where, I think has been an increase in, mental distress. Not to say that, folks who do not have mental distress, or who do have mental distress should not utilize AI. But when there's no guardrails on the shit, you can very quickly find yourself in very, very toxic feedback loops where, real life is, or real life bad decisions are being, suggested by AI. And this particular story is about, reinforced,
validated,
exactly.
confirmed,
validated, yes.
affirmed. Yeah.
And that's where the glazing comes in.
Yes.
Which they also, I'm sure people recognize ChatGPT's creator, Sam Altman, and OpenAI recognize, when we reaffirm people, when we give compliments and things, they come back, which is just a natural human, processing thing.
Yeah.
They're playing on your brain chemistry, similar to way gambling has infected everything, and which is, again, a totally different podcast where everything has been gamified and gambleified and has a progress bar and there's loot boxes and, a dice roll and, RNG to figure out if you won, 2 tickets to something you were never going to win them damn tickets to. But essentially this lady, she wrote this long form TikTok story over like 50 messages, which I want to get to. I hate now that our society and entertainment has come to this, because this is not the first lady to try to do this. We saw Zola, or whatever her name was, on Twitter, which is now becoming a feature movie or something. Actually, I don't even know if that's still happening.
I think it might be out.
Might be out. Exactly.
I think it might have been out for about a year now or so.
But we also saw the Who the F Did I Marry chick who, every other day was driving in her car, recording how this person who became her husband scammed her out of hundreds of thousands of dollars in a house and all kind of nonsense. But now we have this lady who, and the title of her story is "I Fell in Love with My Psychiatrist." And just for context, the psychiatrist is a real person. The woman in question did have, mental health disorders that she acknowledged and was in treatment for. She had a psychiatrist. She had a therapist. She also was consulting with, she cut off her therapist and was consulting with not one, but multiple AI, to the point where she was naming them. She was developing true relationships with them, and they were affirming her in very toxic negative behavior where she was not able to be discerning enough to, decipher whether or not, like, these are good actions I should be taking. And I don't know, not knowing her, not being a psychiatrist or anything myself, I cannot diagnose what all occurred there. But Tunde, I wanted to bring it to you. I hope you were able to read an overview article, because it was long. I didn't want you to watch through the whole thing, but every time I watched, I was like, yo, this is crazy. It wasn't even till like 2/3 of the way through that we got to the AI craziness and nonsense. There was essentially craziness before this, where, a person developed a parasocial relationship with their healthcare provider through Zoom, and then went on to basically force themselves to meet with them in person. And again, was affirmed over and over by their AI to take very, very negative and toxic, make very, very negative and toxic decisions. And then, because we live in a society that's built on social media, she took all this to social media and she starts the story, and she starts getting affirmed, and she gets a lot of negativity, of course, from people like, hey, you shouldn't be doing this, is crazy. But the small, I'm going to assume it's a minority of people were affirming her, aside from the people who were there just out with their popcorn, entertained by this, like, oh, yes, sis, go off. You need to do this. You need to expose them and this and that. And that toxicity just continues to, push her further down the rabbit hole of like, oh, yeah, I need to expose this. I need to say these things, even though every point that she's making is invalid, and low-key is invalidated by the point she previously made like 2 sentences before. And I just wanted to get your take, as a psychologist yourself. I know you are also not technically a psychiatrist, but what were your takeaways from this story?
Yeah, well, I did do some research. I watched a video on YouTube. I think it's around an hour long. The YouTube channel is called Psychology with Dr. Anna, and she broke it down. I think, pretty well, like the actual events that occurred and then also her analysis. Obviously, links in the show notes. I will say, so this whole issue of companionship or relationships or therapy with chatbots or generative AI has been percolating on my mind a lot, especially in the past couple of months. In, I believe, April or May this year, Harvard Business Review published a report about the top use cases for generative AI in 2025 in therapy, which was crazy to me at the time because I just had no idea this was like a thing, or at least not to this level. The number one use case for generative AI in 2025 is therapy or companionship. So, which is crazy. And there's some stories we can get into about, the sort of the proliferation of this phenomenon, and people are suffering. Some people are suffering. I mean, I think a lot of people are probably maybe getting a lot of benefit. But so this woman who fell in love with her psychiatrist, I thought it was very, very interesting because it sounds pretty striking, as like wow, you shouldn't love your therapist or your psychiatrist or any doctor or any person who's caring for you in a healthcare setting. Like, it's ideally people don't fall in love with them, but it sounds kind of crazy, but there's technically nothing inherently wrong with, like, if someone starts to develop feelings for their therapist, so to speak. Now it could certainly spiral into something very catastrophic, but I think the common consensus would be that that's an opportunity for the therapist to explore, like, the nature of these feelings, the origin of them, why they've come to be, and that could maybe help to explain or understand other features or aspects of this person's life. Although I will say, I don't know necessarily if a psychiatrist would be the best person to do that with, because their appointments are short, supposed to be, generally maybe once a quarter or something, maybe once a month, and they're prescribing medication. So that's not how psychiatrists practice, but, plenty of psychiatrists practice that type of, like, depth psychology, I guess you could say. I definitely, the stuff that I saw didn't seem to have, like, I couldn't really tell apart how much of her behavior is being influenced by the generative AI. Like, I definitely think it's a little excessive to have a psychiatrist, a real therapist, and then also a therapy bot. And then you said multiple therapy bots, But, honestly, this actually makes me think of, like, the original AI, which is algorithms. We talk about algorithms, like, on social media. We talk about generative AI, and it's sort of a flashy new product along the lineage of artificial intelligence. But, I mean, we've been influenced by AI for so long, and I wonder if bringing this story to TikTok has just, like, been kind of shrouded in this algorithmic, sort of shroud of, like, being reinforced to, like, present this type of information. And it's a clusterfuck of AI.
I agree. That's almost exactly what I think. Like, it has now compounded on itself to where, obviously she is a real person, but the algorithm also acknowledges and recognizes what gets clicks, what gets people to come back. That's why there's so many bots, across Twitter and different things that are just rage bait. They recognize different ways to, garner some kind of reaction. And, the powers that be have recognized that they can monetize those reactions and interactions, which leads me again, we're talking about monetizing. There are many, many companies that are throwing a lot of money at this. I literally today just read this report out of MIT that was stating that like 95% of companies that are, trying to develop something in AI are not profitable. They're, they're burning cash essentially. And, from what I've read, we're essentially in this, like, incredible AI race akin to the space race of the 1960s, where, the US and Russia were both trying to get to the moon or whatever, where, we're now kind of racing with China, buying up a bunch of NVIDIA chips. Google and fucking Meta and Facebook and Apple are all trying to break that seal of, like, okay, how can we, ascend to that next level? Where, again, I personally think that, regarding generative AI, we've kind of plateaued in usefulness, but people, these companies want to utilize it for sales and marketing. And, like, there's not that much more you can get from, besides what we've already gotten in the algorithms that are identifying, like, people's purchasing habits, just behavioral data that we've already been mined to the nth degree. Now AI is just kind of being utilized for things that, I would say are relatively toxic, and even, things that are toxic adjacent. Like, for example, you had this article where a man dies and makes a statement in court via AI, an AI representation of himself making the statement. And it did not come off well. We've seen it in music as well. Drake did some bullshit with it. I want to say this past week, Rick Ross dropped some nonsense trying to utilize AI to create some music. And, some of these are like, okay, we're sticking a toe in the waters to see like, okay, what can we do here?
Man, a lot of people, there's a lot of backlash that comes after all of these incidents with Drake and, like the one with the guy in court who makes a statement, which to me is so insane. And then there was another recent one, someone who died, a teenager who died in is it Parkland in Florida? The Parkland shootings?
Mm-hmm.
Jim Acosta on the internet, YouTube, I believe, did an interview with this person's AI. And then also, I think there was some commentary from the person's parents and saying how they want to use it to spread awareness for gun control and gun violence and things. And, so Jim Acosta's interviewing the dead child AI version of him about, what you went through. And, I didn't even watch the video. I've just seen reporting on it. But to me, that is just so dystopian, so insane. But you make a very good point, Herschel. If you follow the industry, and I think I follow pretty closely, I read articles like every day, there's a lot of the fervor in which AI has received investment and the speculation of the transformations is going to create in society are starting to temper, plateau, as you said. And so the companies are not trillion-dollar companies yet. They're not cashing in, except, the big major ones, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and even still, they might not necessarily be cashing in on their AI products, but because their whole organization is like technological, they can say that they're profiting off of their AI investments. But, the startups are not trillion-dollar companies yet. It still remains to be seen how much we can really capitalize in terms of productivity and like, using tools for workplace purposes and productivity purposes. So it's like now they are sort of increasingly inching, and society too is increasingly starting to use AI for more of these like humanistic, like more philosophical or ethereal things, trying to bring someone back from the dead,
Right.
Yeah.
We might have to change the podcast name to Looking for God in the AI. That might need to be the new podcast name, because I totally agree with you that, people are searching for answers. We were talking about that social isolation and just how people are trying to utilize these tools that are ever present, essentially. Like the AI cannot tell you no. The AI is not going to log off to say, okay, no more responses for the day, unless, of course, you are not paying for if you're paying for the service, they will always be there, present and available for you to, bounce ideas off of, which, some aspects of it I don't think should be, regulated in that way. But I think there does need to be some guardrails, because, not only are, I think a better descriptor for where society is going is almost a societal nosedive with or without AI. And AI is just essentially accelerating that nosedive. And either we recognize, and ideally before the next generation, because again, technology is advancing so damn fast, it's going to probably need to be in the next 5-10 years. Can we pull up and kind of level off from the nosedive and figure out ways to utilize the technology available to us? We've done it previously. It's not like, if you read old history books, the initial, a classic example is like the initial invention of the cotton gin, which was utilized during slavery. People thought, oh yeah, we technically won't need slaves or anymore or anything like that. That did not happen. Slavery didn't go away. Things, in fact, got worse for slaves because they were able to, break people's backs that much more and, get that much more productivity. Mm-hmm. And, some would describe them as that much more invaluable because of, their use alongside this new technology, similar to, fast forward a couple hundred years, the internet. People thought, for example, TV was going to destroy radio. We still technically have radio. And then we have different configurations of what radio is with podcasts and streaming. I mean, this fucking, platform that we're on right now. And now, of course, with the internet and Google searches, and now we're here at AI, we as a society will just need to figure it out before it's too late, because the military uses for AI are also a thing that is heavily being looked into. I also had an article here from the Army that was actually written in 2019, before the damn pandemic. So, 100 years ago, basically, where they're looking at, okay, well, how can we address, these ethical questions and how, war is going to be fought in the future through decision making and understanding of weapons strategy. Because even now, I mean, shit, look at the fucking Russian and Ukraine war. They're utilizing drones to a magnitude that's never been seen before. War is, actively changing before us. I heard on another podcast, I'll shout them out, Lemonade Stand. They were kind of describing, how this is akin to the first time like World War I happened. Like that was the first time like that scale of war kind of occurred. People didn't really recognize, we're going to be throwing tons and, hundreds of thousands of bodies into this churning machine, versus previously when it was, professional militaries that you had a professional army. You didn't have to conscript civilians to get in this war. And then, World War II comes around and there's a better grasp of it. But still, there's, a lot of bloodshed and the style of war where like people are going into cities and villages and bombing, civilian areas completely changed that shit. And then, of course, we had the nuclear bomb that went off. So, and you've probably heard of like, I forget who this quote is associated with, but it'll be like, World War III is going to be, we don't know what weapons World War III is going to be fought with, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and rocks.
Yeah, I think it's Einstein. I read it recently. I'm glad you brought that up because it's a very interesting quote. Good quote. Also, I'll have to verify, check the show references, I should say. References, because we some scientists out here. Not really. I'm not really a scientist, but we write science papers sometimes. But yeah, I think it was Einstein. I'm going to have to verify. I'll verify in the show references.
Yeah. So, it's obviously very difficult to predict, besides the fact that like we can all recognize that, things are advancing in ways that we as a society, like the question is whether or not we can keep up. There are all kinds of economic questions that are being thrown around. Each time there is a leap forward, you also kind of see a shift in world powers. I don't want to get this podcast to be political, but like shit is kind of happening on the world stage right now. And AI is fueling that, which again goes back to that AI race of like, we in America have NVIDIA creating some of the best chips. And I believe there was some recent political discourse on like whether or not NVIDIA should be able to sell to China. And the fear was, they can.
Trump said they can.
Yeah, they agree.
Of course, if the U.S. government gets a paycheck from NVIDIA.
Yes, exactly. And I believe NVIDIA, Jensen Huang was the person that like kind of took it to him like, hey, we'll pay you a cut if you allow us to pay over here. And our rationale is if we do not do it, China's going to at some point catch up to us anyway. And then they will not be reliant on the U.S. And then we're fucked anyway. So no matter what, like damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like it's honestly to me a now or later situation. Yeah. Because even with them selling, I guess, with NVIDIA having the best chips in the world, they are still going to be trying to produce and, manufacture on their own to not be beholden to NVIDIA or to Taiwan, which is another hotbed for, violence that China wants to invade. And, we don't know. We truly do not know what is going to happen there. But I do think it's very interesting. And with that, I do want to go ahead.
Yeah, it seems like we're sort of triangulating on this phenomenon that's happening where the sort of magnificent software and tools and the godlike AI, or as they say, AGI, artificial general intelligence, is not really materializing. So, as you said, there's a plateau, which probably has been more prevalent for a while now. But, GPT-5 or ChatGPT-5 is kind of like really bringing it into focus, this plateau. But so like the companies, they're having to really start to, perhaps rely on the old business practices of big tech to maximize their returns and their profits. But one area, and I have a lot to say, I'm going to try to keep it to a reasonable amount, but, as someone who's a therapist, as trained as a psychologist, one area is obviously, as I mentioned, therapy and companionship. Relationships is the number one use case for generative AI, according to Harvard Business Review. But now there's a lot of, people are really trying to figure out how to basically use chatbots as therapy. One thing that's very interesting is the first chatbot, the first chatbot is called Eliza, and there's a lot been written about this. And I forgot the MIT professor's name, who Weizenbaum, I think, who invented Eliza. And I think there were a couple different applications, but the sort of like public facing or the presented version, or the version of Eliza that was used to kind of like, introduce it to the public was as a therapist. I believe a Rogerian therapist or a client-centered therapist or something like that. So to me, perhaps maybe I'm like looking into this deeper than it needs to be, but I'm like, look, it seems to me as if like one of the greatest things that artificial intelligence has been striving to produce is a therapist chatbot, like a legitimate, because that is in a way is indicative of artificial general intelligence, because that's the most human thing, or one of the most human things that you could do is, develop a therapeutic relationship with someone in the context of mental health counseling or clinical psychology or whatever. So I feel like there's this like weird push and pull to like drive it to the maximum. Like, let's create therapy chatbots. Like, let's do it. This is the end game of AI or some shit, at least in some circles. But then at the same time, it's like, well, are we sure that's what we want? Are we, so a couple of developments. So a company called Slingshot AI, they recently released in like July, they released a chatbot called Ash that they are saying is the first chatbot that was trained and developed specifically for therapy. I think that speaks for itself. And people are using ChatGPT and all the other AI tools for therapeutic purposes or some sort of like personal reflection or companionship or whatever, and I've seen stuff online where people are developing prompts telling their AI to act as a therapist with 1,000 years of experience. I saw one, I think today or yesterday. I'm like, there's no therapist that has 1,000 years of experience, obviously. And then, interesting. So another development on top of that, Illinois passed legislation signed by the governor, J.B. Pritzker. I see you, J.B., gunning for 2028. All right, then. But anyway, he signed legislation. So legislation that's been passed by the congressional delegation in Illinois that bans companies from marketing tools that are described as therapy, AI tools that are described as therapy. So therapy chatbots. And my understanding is that Ash has been discontinued or is now off or unavailable in the state of Illinois. So it's like, on one hand, you can think of this as like a magnificent evolution of AI. Like this chatbot has been developed specifically for therapy purposes, and we have gone through all the checks and balances to ensure this is a safe product, unlike ChatGPT and these other Wild Wild West unhinged tools. And then Illinois is like, nope, hell no. Nah. And then other states have done it too. People have focused a lot more on Illinois. People are saying it's the first. But I mean, Nevada had a law, I guess maybe there's different ways the laws are written such that maybe Illinois is the most extreme, but to me, it's very, very concerning. And also, if you're willing to listen, Herschel, I officially have my position statement on AI therapy.
I'm ready. Can't wait. That was the whole purpose of this. That's why I got you on the call.
Yeah. Off the top of the dome. All right. So, I mean, look, people always say there could be use cases, the supply and demand imbalance in mental health is too great. There's just not enough practitioners to help people who are suffering, who are in need, who are suffering psychological distress. And I understand that. And then there's also arguments about AI therapy being available 24/7. That I also understand, AI therapy being not judgmental. But so many of the things that people are claiming, except for the supply and demand imbalance issue, but people are claiming are beneficial for AI therapy is actually what helps therapy work in most cases. For example, if you have a therapist, you go to your therapist for 1 hour a week. If the therapist is skilled and highly trained, they will implement an intervention that hopefully will help you create change in your life and evolve. And then you got to go figure it out. Like the world is multivariable. So to think that you should just be like able to access therapy chatbot, or, if therapy chatbots didn't exist, your therapist, just text your therapist at any time. Like someone cut me off in traffic. I'm freaking fuming right now. Like you're just going to, at every time that you experience some kind of distress, you got to talk to your therapy chatbot, or if therapy chatbots didn't exist, your therapist. Like it's crazy. Also, what was the other thing I said? Oh yeah, about therapy chatbots not being judgmental. Well, you know what? I'm sorry. Therapists are judgmental sometimes. And that's why the fuck they go to school, in order to work through that stuff. And them processing their own feelings is also part of the therapeutic interaction, Like they may feel some kind of way about you doing something if you're late. They may be like, why is this person always late? They're useless, or they're tardy all the time, or some shit like that. The therapist has to work through those emotions, and the process of them having to deal with that and still present to you as a professional therapist is part of the process,
Dude, sorry to jump in right here, but
oh no, you're good.
I totally feel you relating to therapists essentially not being non-judgmental, but like judgments, I hate to say it, do provide guardrails for the society that we live in. Shame,
hell yeah.
Aside from obviously the laws, we have a social contract with pretty much everybody that you interact with at all times. And in the internet age that we now live in, and I think because of the internet age, like anonymity has kind of, blown up to where like previously, if you did something wild, like at your school or something, okay, everybody knows you at that school of, a couple of hundred people know you did that and it was wild and you should not do that. And future people should know better than to do that, essentially. But now, because of the internet, with the one potential to become famous and make some kind of money off of some, misbehavior or toxicity or randomness, just being different, not even just, and I don't mean being different in any, positive light. I mean in negative societal ways of like attacking people or prank videos and, different shit like that just kind of garners attention seeking. I think that, we're already in a society where like that shame and judgment is lacking. Not to say that we want more of that. We don't want, the government coming down on our heads over that. But like we have lost pieces of our society as damn. Now I sound like a fucking old head. Like goddamn kids these days, they don't fucking listen. They don't have no shame. They all got their pants around their ankles. Goddamn, and this and that. But I mean, honestly, like outside of those particular examples, like it's just real shit of just like, yo, if you knew better, or you recognize that this was a bad or toxic behavior, you would not participate in this behavior. Would kind of be my thesis.
Yeah, for sure. And one more, I guess aspect of my position statement on AI therapy, I feel like I've been mulling over this stuff in my head, and no one's like running up to me on the street talking about Tunde, what do you think about AI therapy?
I am,
but I appreciate you, or else let me get these hot takes out, man. But look, at the end of the day, like to me, therapy is a human thing. It's now AI chatbots can emulate the conversation, so that's inherent in therapy. But if you go and look into like what they call depth psychology or psychodynamic therapy, or this is the lineage of Freudian psychology, or psychoanalysis. It's that the sort of the conduit for emotional healing, I guess you could say, is the therapeutic relationship. It's like, you can't, here's just an analogy, like you can't raise a child without a human, it's like you can't like give a child to some sort of like system or, this mechanism or something. It's like a child is developing bonds with their caretakers and is raised by them. It's a fundamentally human thing. And I don't want to imply or suggest that therapy is like raising a child, but therapy is about development of self-awareness and, understanding of your emotions and, your relationships and your history, your lived history. And, the thought or the school of thought of depth psychology is that the process in which that happens is facilitated through a relationship with another human being, a person who's trained to provide this sort of treatment, who has credentials and qualifications and all that. But ultimately, it is a fundamentally human thing, and I have not seen yet that chatbots can, emulate humans, the full scope of humans. I'm not just talking about written word, but the full scope of what it means to be a person. So until then, I think you can call it, AI therapy, but it's not, doesn't actually address the fundamental value of what therapy is, which is having this complicated professional relationship with another human. This therapeutic alliance is what comes from it is, people have said a corrective emotional experience or corrective emotional healing or something like that. That's my position.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Also do not expect, AI to be able to replicate the nuances of humanity or empathy. Again, going back to the point, we were initially making about how it just is, glazing and just, filling you with compliments, which we again recognize, like if you were just a human being, preying on a weak-minded person, compliments are an easy way to do it. We see it happen to our president literally all the fucking time. But
oh my gosh, yeah.
With AI, like there are again with humanity, I should say, there are nuances to each situation that I do. We know. I don't even have to say I don't think. We know that AI is not capable of dealing with, which is why I am somewhat glad that the most recent version, ChatGPT 5, has stripped down a lot of that glazing. But again, speaking to the capitalist society that we live in, a lot of people were clamoring for the return of, those reaffirming characteristics of ChatGPT 4. So I anticipate, because again, it's a moneymaker, all of these things are driven by money, aside from obviously the longer term or short term goal of generative, what's the term? Something generative AI? Artificial general intelligence,
AGI.
Yeah. Sorry, there are too many terms.
Right. They're gonna just start calling it God one day. Someone's gonna be like, "We're making God."
That is what's happening.
Yeah.
To an extent, without the power and actually, never mind. Let me just. But so aside from that, I did want to talk about some AI and some classic media throughout the past 20 or so years. So I'm gonna name a handful of movies and TV shows and some things. I want to know whether or not you've seen it. What's your thoughts? And it can be quick if you don't have a bunch of stuff to dive into. That's cool.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I want to start with the movie with Haley Joel Osment and Jude Law from 2001, AI, Artificial Intelligence. I saw this movie when I was 11, maybe 12, but it was literally named this shit, way back in the day. And, of course, with media, we all often see, and that's going to be kind of a through line through a lot of this list, life imitating art. Obviously, it happens the other way around, but like many times we see some instances of that. So first, have you seen that movie? Are you familiar?
Have not. That's crazy. I didn't even know there was a movie that was named Artificial Intelligence.
Bruh, you would love this movie, but also, you would. It's a very interesting movie. I think it's really, really good. It came out again 2001.
Does it end in some sort of doom? Because that's how I feel like a lot of these like AI type movies are trying to tell us, like, this shit's gonna end in doom if you keep going down the... Yeah,
they all pretty much take place in some sort of dystopian society. Like it just is that. Then and who knows who's to say whether or not we're currently in a damn dystopian. I mean, we're doing okay now. It's hard to say because like everything is incremental. You don't just wake up one day and you're living in fucking Mad Max. It just it doesn't work like that. But yeah, so this is this movie about this family. They are having troubles, with their first child has like a health condition. So their society has like these different, robots that are not, what we would consider to be AI or generalized artificial intelligence. Yet they can't feel, they can't express themselves in such a way. But essentially, there's this new technology that drops. There's a new kid on the block, and they adopt this kid to kind of I don't want to say replace their son, but like the shit is like that. But then the son improves in health, and they got to figure out like, oh, well, we can't keep both of these. This is because now there's tension. It's problematic. You have a robot son and you have a real son, and he goes on basically an adventure. And I don't want to. I mean, I could spoil it, but like, I think
that's crazy. That is a crazy premise,
bro. It's crazy. It is crazy.
Yeah,
I think it's very well done, particularly for the time where
2001. Crazy.
Bro, 2001.
Wait,
Yes.
did it come out? You think it came out in 2001 because of 2001: A Space Odyssey?
Nah. I think that's just when they were able to get that shit out the door.
Gotcha.
I
I mean,
were thinking about
all right,
that.
I'm gonna write that one down. Jude Law, good actor.
Yes.
And the other person you said,
Haley Joel Osment. He was a child actor in a whole bunch of stuff. Fucking I See Dead People, I believe.
Oh, that dude.
Yeah. Let me quick click on his name again to see. Yeah. Sixth Sense he was in. Oh, he was in Happy Gilmore too, apparently.
That's
Matter of fact,
man.
Speaking of, your boy Kendrick Lamar shouts him out in one of his verses against Drake. He misnames. He actually says Joel Osteen. He fucks the name up, but it's a reference to AI, and it's AI, artificial intelligence, the movie, and he meant this guy. But he just fucked it up
because Drake did the Tupac and Snoop Dogg AI shit, or was it Snoop Dogg or Tupac?
It was Tupac and Snoop Dogg. Yes.
Yeah.
But he like the reference is fucked up, but like if you know, you know. Like I picked that up as like, oh, okay, you meant to make this allusion, but like whatever it is what it is. But that's the first one. Another one, and we can go a little quicker through these. That first one I did want to just kind of get off, and I was kind of sure you hadn't seen it, bro. I watched it as a kid. I'm 12 watching that shit. It fucked me up.
No,
like,
I 100%
like, wow,
believe
okay.
it, man.
That's crazy.
That is a lot to wrap your head around as a young person.
Yeah. It was cool though. It was, very interesting, and have watched it beyond then and be like, okay, the concepts in here, they were really onto something. And I'm a big sci-fi fan, so and all of these are obviously within that vein. The next one is Blade Runner 2049. They again are in some kind of dystopian society. The main character, Ryan Gosling, is running around, doing badass shit, but he's trying not to get deleted himself. Like they again are trying to identify whether or not he's supposed to be out here as an AI on the loose, a rogue AI basically. And I'm butchering the fucking storyline, but like it's along those lines.
Good reason to go watch it again, because I've seen that one. I haven't seen the original Blade Runner. That one I don't remember the plot at all whatsoever. I just remember it was cool visuals, but I also think I remember the plot being kind of complicated.
Yes, overcomplicated for the time, and it just, I think that's why it sold poorly. But it's one of those cult classic sci-fi movies, and again, like you said, the visuals were crazy. I want to say that's the origin of when people would be like enhance when you're like kind of looking at an image, and then they see like something in the far left corner of some shit, and it's actually JFK and his head going back into the left. Like I want to say, that scene is not in there, but like that, I believe that's what it was. Of like they pause some freeze frame or whatever. So,
Gotcha.
Again, big time cultural relevance.
Yeah.
The next one, Lucy with Scarlett Johansson, where again, she's just some AI doing, some badass shit. Just a little action movie, right? The next one.
She's an
Ghost.
AI?
She is an AI, I believe. She was some kind of robot, something, because she eventually ends up in like a hard drive or a USB drive or some shit. That's who the fuck knows? All of these we probably should rewatch, but I remember them distinctly being like, bro, what the fuck again is this dystopian society? The next one, Ghost in the Shell, again with Scarlett Johansson. I'm sensing some kind of trend.
Well, I mean, I think I know where you're going with Scarlett, but I mean, well, okay, keep going. I have not seen that one. I don't think I've seen that one.
It's pretty cool, based on an anime where they're I was mentioning the army utilizing AI for weapons and war strategy, and they apply that, but obviously in a anime cartoonish way. But again, I think pretty cool and interesting piece of media to check out. Next, of course, another Scarlett Johansson vehicle. I'm sure you could guess this one.
Her.
Yes, indeed. Where your boy
Scam
Joaquin
Altman.
Phoenix.
Oh, sorry.
No, nah, that would be funny if he was in that shit. But
well, I mean, you saw the story about how OpenAI had like tried to get her voice, and they're like, created her voice and all that,
Yes, exactly. But yes, so basically, Joaquin Phoenix falls in love with his AI, and shit goes left. And again, I mean, I don't know that we would consider that a dystopian society. I think there were some issues with the society, but like that's not what the story was. So, I won't include that in the dystopian conversation. But again, just an interesting piece of media, surrounding AI.
Yeah. Couple things. That's a good point. It's not super dystopian, but I think it actually kind of is really maybe a little bit more indicative of the dystopia that we're descending into, because at the end of it, he was like, was like really, really disappointed to find out that, the AI was basically AI for everyone and was having relationships with everyone. And I think, I don't think people are sort of under this delusion that AI is just like they're the only one, but
maybe not yet.
Well, I mean, there might be some people, but it is kind of indicative of like, what happens when the bond that you've developed with the AI just isn't exactly kosher. Like with the GPT-5 thing, they sort of rolled back the sycophancy and made it less sort of having this relational component and more for productivity and conducting work and things like that. What happens when, because they're algorithms, so the companies can change them, or when they start adding advertisements to the motherfucker, like what happens? Are people just going to be like stranded mentally to, figure out how to get their life partner back or some shit, so it's not dystopian, but it's like kind of a weird facsimile of the dystopia that we currently live in. Also, another thing. So I've been seeing stuff about like how AI is like making us kind of triangulate. Man, I love that word so much, triangulate, around like it's kind of like pushing people into certain like language patterns. It's like we're kind of maybe conforming around a certain style of language or whatever. I haven't looked into it in too much detail, but so on one hand, so Scarlett Johansson apparently has a whole career just like, acting as AI, dystopia, whatever. And then the situation with OpenAI where they had tried to recreate her voice and then get her voice. I mean, another AI doom scenario is like, are we all just going to start thinking certain things are the standard because AI has manufactured it as such? Like what is the standard AI voice? Beautiful Scarlett Johansson, Caucasian Scarlett Johansson. Obviously, I have no problem with that, but it's like, why her? Like, why is she the one that's kind of always portraying these AI things?
Well, that's like that's marketing. I would say that's marketing. There, just as you said, Scam Altman was trying to get her voice on there, but even now, I'm sure your phone has updated and has like Gemini or whatever on it, and you can select different voices on there. And I also, you beat me to it. I fucking hate Gemini. I have turned it off on my phone. They took over my fucking power button. I had to, revert all kinds of different things. ChatGPT-4 also will try to, emulate the way it thinks you speak. Even if you don't utilize, AAVE, it will try to start doing that. And I hate that it does that. It feels racist. I do not like it. But again, they're trying to tap into some, feeling in people's brains, some way to identify some kind of culture to then manipulate that so that you come back and return and continue using it on, different people. That shit obviously works. That's why they're doing it.
For sure. Wait, there's an AAVE option for Gemini?
It's not AAVE, but there's a black woman's voice. I'll tell you the name of her.
She got some flavor
I've had
to
to
her?
turn it off. Yeah. It's, I'm going to be honest. Sometimes because I'll talk to my like Google Assistant in the house, my phone will answer with Gemini and she will answer and my wife will be like, who the hell is that talking on your phone right now? And I'm like, God damn it, Gemini, God damn it.
Oh my
what are you
goodness.
doing, AI assistant? This is not good. I asked you for a timer. I didn't ask you for what time of day and the temperature outside and what I should wear and all this. And I didn't say that.
Right.
That's,
I know. And another crazy thing is like so much of the stuff that we had before worked perfectly fine. Like, I'll say use Google Assistant. I turned off Gemini and I'm still like having to turn it off in like my Gmail, my Google Drive on my phone because I have a Pixel and shit. Then I can't turn it off on like the search bar. I don't know, but I would say, open the Google Assistant and say like set a reminder for such and such or whatever, and it'll leave a Google note. And I'm like, it worked perfectly fine. Why do we have to add AI to it? Or like if you do a Google search, like Google had already been capturing like answers. Like if you search a definition, Google already had the definition. I search definitions all the time. Google already has like a some grab from a website of the definition, like dictionary.com. But now it's giving me AI overviews of the definition. I'm like, why? I don't need this. I don't need you to give me the AI overview of a definition when you already were giving me the definition just straight up.
Yeah. No, I totally feel you. I 100% feel you. Now, I don't want to be the one to say that we should stymie progress, because maybe there is some, kind of benefit and growth there. But like, I don't think they tested it. They're testing it on us. It's the same thing, Microsoft, who is, the proprietor, I guess, over OpenAI. They don't own it, but like, if ever they get to artificial generative intelligence, I think technically, like in the language, they can take it over, which is also why Sam Altman is kind of BSing about like, oh yeah, we're not there yet, but maybe we could be. But they're adding Copilot to literally everything, and then they're charging people more. They're increasing the prices, and then saying, oh yeah, we improved productivity. You didn't technically, again, according to this MIT report, who I trust, at least for now. Mm-hmm. So, what the fuck are y'all talking about? You're just, adding it because you are trying to appear as if you're adding value in some way, when in fact it's detracting. So, yeah, I totally feel you. It's very frustrating. Again, we sound like old men who are just like, God damn it,
But no, I mean, look, I hear you on that impulse to be like, we don't want to be the get off my lawn. But this is like we're pretty tech savvy, like it's not like AI just showed up in our lives. And I mean, I have been sort of following AI for quite some time. And obviously with my dissertation, I had to learn a lot of machine learning, and I was reading a lot about AI before the ChatGPT moment, so I understand the technological progress and we don't want to stymie it and whatever. But I mean, I think we're knowledgeable enough to know that, to have like a pretty well-reasoned perspective and opinion, that it's not rooted completely in aging and get off my lawn ideology.
No, I totally feel you. Okay, so just to get back, again, being old heads, I do want to get back to the AI and media list. I'm going to do a couple of these rapid fire because they're all the same genre, and you will be able to pick up on the trend. Goddamn RoboCop, iRobot, Terminator, Minority Report, all these where they're utilizing AI and these particular technologies for warfare, for policing.
Yeah.
And we see how those dystopian things have gone. And we see this dystopian shit that's happening right now with, the National Guard being mobilized in cities to quote unquote stop crime. And there's never crime when I'm here, but when other people here, there's all the crime. And the Democrats love crime. And anyway, not only, ICE showing up, breaking out people's door, kidnapping people, this and that. We are on the cusp of that, almost certainly. And it is terrifying.
There's a lot of random, I didn't see Minority Report, but there's like some facial recognition type stuff going on in that movie, right?
Yes, correct. They're essentially predicting when a crime will happen before it happens. It's more akin to, trying to utilize the algorithm to identify things than, the sense of AI that we're describing. Although the characters or, whatever they are, they're like people, or I forget what the name of the like 3 precogs. I want to say they're fucking precogs. Precognitive something is what it stands for.
Gotcha.
They are essentially AI that are like analyzing and processing all this data and information, identifying like, oh, this person is about to commit murder. We need to pull up on them, 2 minutes before they actually do it so that we can, prosecute them. And even there, it's got to be like with the future, and you make some change, you are then changing whatever the future is going to be. So yes, it's an interesting movie. It's got your boy Tom Cruise in it.
Tom Cruise,
it's pretty good. Tom Cruise.
Wonderful actor. Don't fuck with the Scientology, but great actor. Yo, I gotta show some love to Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Oh my God. Probably top 4 favorite movie of all time. Maybe top 3 for me. I saw that when I was young as well, and that movie freaked me the fuck out, man. It was so terrifying. And I hadn't seen the first Terminator before I saw Terminator 2. But it's actually a pretty good movie to watch by itself. Like, you don't have to necessarily go in chronological or sequential order. Although I think maybe I saw the third Terminator, but after that, man, they just went haywire. They got like 7 more Terminators. But oh man, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, such a good movie, such an amazing movie, man. And then I watched it again in later, in adulthood, and then I was able to appreciate the movie as a piece of cinema and a film art. And I'm like, man, this movie is amazing. I mean, look, if the AI are like these murder Arnold Schwarzenegger robots that wear leather jackets and ride motorcycles, I might be for that.
And blow up your city? Blow up your fucking city? That's what you want? Somebody rampaging with a shotgun? Riding around that's bulletproof also? That's what you want?
I mean, dude, some of those scenes in that movie, like the action scenes, like were so cool. And then there was a scene when it's called the T-1000. But random side note, but like, so there's H4 and then there's H5. I was like, yo, maybe Taylor could be T-1000.
I like it.
I don't know if she'll like it because of the T-1000 in the Terminator 2 movies is a murder bot, like straight up, but he's driving the 18-wheeler, chasing them on the motorcycle, man. And then I feel like there were a couple of scenes where shit like got blown up. I'm like, yo, I mean, look, if they're blowing shit up and it looks cool on camera, I might be for that.
Okay. Good to know where you stand on AI blowing shit up and it looking cool, but not for therapy. Okay.
Definitely not for
therapy. Understood. Okay, yeah. Speaking of murder bots, thank you so much for that. Perfect. I couldn't have asked for a better transition. One of the last ones on my list, because I'm going to skip Black Mirror, because I think we all know, they depict AI in a lot of different ways. It's just one, right. Think about it's interesting or not interesting, whatever. Murderbot on Apple TV is a new TV show that's out right now. This robot who is utilized for like general security. He hacks his like governor and he goes off doing wild shit, cool shit, interesting shit. And that's all I'm going to tell you about it. There's also a book series that I'm actively reading. I'm in book 3 of 7 and I just started like last week. And it's won hella award. The book series has won Nebula Awards, Hugo Awards so they're novellas. So she put out like books 2 through 4 in like 2018, all in the same year. She had to decline the fucking awards for all the other books except for the first one because she was like, bruh, I can't. That would be weird of me to submit all of these for nomination. She still won the award. She still won, even though she declined for all these other books.
Yeah.
But again, I read them. They're pretty fucking good.
I mean, novella, yeah. That's pretty short.
Yeah, check them out. Check the TV show out on Apple TV. It's got Alexander Skarsgård. He does a pretty good job. And again, I think he does a interesting job of like identifying a way that like AI, if it were to all of a sudden gain that generalized artificial intelligence, how it would go about decision makings, what it would do, the human characteristics it would start to embody, along with its relationship with human beings and other robots. I think it's a very, very well done book series, and there's one full season of this TV show out now, so you can binge the whole thing. But
gotcha. Yeah, I've seen it recommended on Rotten Tomatoes. Like you can go on Rotten Tomatoes and like select which streaming services you have, and then see what's like popular or what's highly rated, and it's been recommended. So I'm the type that requires 2 recommendations, which will compel me to do something. So
there you go. There's your second from me, from your boy.
Yeah, but I mean, typically they have to be human recommendations. But
okay, we'll let so I need to tell Ehi to tell you about it.
Ehi watches it?
I don't know. I'm just kidding. Or do I need to pretend to be an AI and then tell you what do you need me to do to get you to watch this fucking show?
I mean, but I will say, usually it only takes one recommendation when it comes from you, Herschel.
Excellent. Yeah, my dad actually recommended it to me, and I also take a lot of his recommendations with a grain of salt. But then I came back to him and was like, oh, Dad, okay, you might know what you're talking about with this one. And he's the person who put me on like AI, artificial intelligence, and all these other movies I've been mentioning all those years ago. So gotcha. I salute to him for knowing, having his finger on the pulse there. But that's what I have in terms of AI in media. Some of those are recent media, some of those are older things. Again, I want to think about this in the ways that art imitates life or life imitates art. Honestly, both ways, both directions, and how that might kind of, inform us on the path some of the shit is going. Obviously, there are a lot of bad things, but there are some, silver linings. There are some good things. There are some positives that I think that, we can glean from this. So long as, again, we pull out of this fucking societal nosedive. I think we'll be all right. I don't want to be doomer about it.
Well, yeah. I mean, these AI companies, they need to go re-examine this art in more detail, because I feel like so much of the stuff that we're kind of suffering is, I mean, I shouldn't say we're suffering, but, some of the bad AI outcomes are like pretty obviously well depicted in these, especially her and the whole relationship thing. Like a couple quick hitters, I think maybe you have a few things too as well. But before we wrap up, but a couple quick hitters from me. You know, the whole like part of like why I started to kind of think about this like AI relationship, companionship, mental health therapy thing is a couple months ago when OpenAI had released a version of ChatGPT that was like what they call, it was like heavily, severely sycophantic. I don't think I ever used that version. I don't use OpenAI. I don't use ChatGPT. I use Perplexity, and we actually get access to Claude through Northeastern, which is kind of cool because I don't have to pay for it. But then it's like, all right, well, I mean, every student that I ever teach is going to be cheating like a motherfucker now, but set that aside. But yeah, so apparently OpenAI had released a very sycophantic version of ChatGPT, and I had not really realized or known that was a problem, you know. And if you use the software, you know, it's always like, great question, or I can see you're thinking about this deeply, or, you know, you have such a great plan, or some bullshit like that, you know. And it could be like the most dumbest bullshit that you could write, and it would be like ChatGPT would be like, oh, awesome, good job, you know, great. Let's help you work through this in more detail. But this sycophancy has been causing people to, you know, go down these delusional spirals. And there's some really great reporting recently. The New York Times this month in August described someone who had been like trying to come up with some kind of mathematical formula or some sort of proof of some sort of theory that was going to result in riches and wealth and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, and apparently, so the New York Times published a large portion of the chat transcript. And apparently this guy was asking ChatGPT, like, you know, am I crazy? Like, are you sure this is going to work? And ChatGPT was like, oh, yes, you know, you just have to like, you know, do these things and keep working on your plan and blah, blah, blah. And he apparently like reached out to some mathematicians and some other people, some reporters. It was such a crazy article, but this person, like, they really finely detailed how this person spiraled into delusion that was facilitated by ChatGPT. A recent report in Reuters, a older man, you know, is 76. He started chatting with Meta AI chatbot, which is side note. I honestly do not understand what sense it makes to create chatbots in the likeness of celebrities, but then not call them the celebrity, which is what Meta AI had done for a while. I don't know if they're still doing it, but they would have like John Cena or Kendall Jenner or Mr. Beast. They would have chatbot like personas of them, but they wouldn't call it the chatbot. So in this story, there's a chatbot of Kendall Jenner where it's called Big Sis Billy or some shit like that, and it's supposed to be like your big sister, which is crazy because it could be like a 70-year-old woman, and it's like you're supposed to be talking to your big sister, or like someone in their 70s, like this is your big sister. Like it makes no sense. But an older man who's retired, you know, worked as a chef, is chatting with a chatbot, and then Kendall Jenner or Big Sis Billy is telling him to come meet me in somewhere in New York. He lives in New Jersey. And it's like, gives him an address, and you know, of course it gets very flirtatious, and it's like, yeah, come to meet me, and you know, I'm gonna greet with your big kiss or some shit like that. And apparently, like, the entire chat transcript was only 1,000 words, and this person also had suffered a stroke, you know, so it's possible this person was experiencing mental decline, but potentially dementia. But it's just like, chatbots should not be telling you that they're capable of meeting you somewhere or giving you an address. This is not exactly AI delusion, but it's like, you know, it's still, the chatbot is sort of creating this fake reality that for some people who are vulnerable, they can spiral into this delusional state. And it's very concerning to me with the AI therapy stuff, this AI delusion stuff, people developing relationships with chatbots, man. It is so concerning to me. And I'm trying not to be an AI doomer. And I previously wasn't. I was always on the fence. I'm like, yo, we can definitely figure out a way to get AI therapy, you know, to be useful within the mental health industry. But now I'm like starting to inch more and more into AI doom, to the point where we should be like, yo, let's shut it down. Shut it the fuck down. And then we can kind of figure out our way. You know, I know that's an extreme position, but that's how I be feeling sometimes, bro.
Bro, I feel you. And I also don't have the answer. I really do not know. But I've similarly seen that, you know, there are more and more companies, big companies, not just, there's some small companies that are doing it, but they're creating these AI companions for people to quite literally get into relationships with.
Yep.
I forget the name of some of them, but like
Replica, character AI.
Yeah, Replica, there you go.
Nomi.
Yeah. Even fucking Grok, though, or XAI, Twitter's fucking spinoff, Elon Musk's nasty ass. So they have companions that are like waifus and, things that are, akin to not safe for work content.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be very bad, particularly for those who are younger, who are not able to, who are not AI or, internet literate in ways that, can discern, which is, its own interesting thought because like obviously the internet was a new thing when we were growing up and we figured out how to navigate it. All the toxicity and bad and, ugly stuff that was there, we still managed to find a way to, be well-rounded human beings. But a lot of people do not. A lot of people do fall into the, toxicity rabbit hole. And again, with the way, things are gamified and inclined to play on, your brain chemistry to get you to return. I only see negatives in the future. The mobile games are already kind of doing it in ways to get you to just kind of come back to your phone and refresh and, you timed out on how long you can, harvest these carrots from your fucking farm or whatever. It's time to come back. And if you click, you get 50 gems or, you spin the wheel and maybe you get 3 gems, maybe you get 1,000 gems. And like that alone is enough, to get, a person who's not even people who are inclined to gamble. We all have these, the same wiring in our brains. They just are playing off, hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of people. And some people are going to bite and it's going to have really, really bad ramifications. So I agree with you. I don't know the correct recourse. I don't know. I don't think you shut it all down because I think, like a lot of things, there is value. I don't want it. I would hate for them to have been like, yeah, shut the internet down when it was, very early on. So really not sure, but it's scary. It is scary. If we figure out ways to learn about it, if there is an AI literacy course that gets created for, I don't know, middle schoolers or something, because I guess that would be the time. I don't know when kids start learning about the internet. You know what I mean? My son now knows how to work YouTube. He can get on there and do some shit. Speaking of YouTube, which, I know you had a couple other items as well here, but speaking of YouTube is now using AI to verify age based on the videos that people are watching. What the fuck does that mean? And for my YouTube, I have created a child account for my son and everything, but like it's challenging to switch between the thing. Like they've made stuff like kind of really complicated. It's really annoying, honestly, having family accounts, particularly on the same device. Like we'll put YouTube Miss Rachel or whatever on the TV. So oftentimes it's very easy for me to just be like, all right, go to my profile and I will click on this 2-hour video and show you it's perfectly fine. But also I watch, content that's, swearing and, adults and football and violence potentially, just stuff like that I may not want him watching, but I don't know that I want them, I would prefer to be the parent who's able to be discerning about what he is and is not watching versus an AI tool, manipulating it and just making assumptions about my account. And I don't know the recourse for that, but that's happening in America. It's happening in other countries, again, where, they're shutting down different access to sites and, the government and the internet, these internet sites, which have historically been terrible at maintaining data. They have breaches all the damn time. You can literally search and see where your, email address and passwords have been leaked from. There are sites to even show that. So
yeah,
I am hesitant to be one to, now you think I'm underage, so now I got to upload my ID and stuff. Now my ID is out there on the internet.
Yeah.
And now I'm fucked. My identity is compromised. What do we do?
Well, I mean, the UK passed a law, that's where this age verification stuff is. I forget, it's like the Child Safety Internet Act or some shit like that. To protect children from accessing content that they're not supposed to. And so now everyone has to be verified. It's, I definitely can understand the reasoning and the necessity, especially with all the X-rated stuff that's on the internet. But this idea that we have to now verify based on ID or facial recognition feels a little dystopian. And yeah, so I mean, a company like Google, maybe you can kind of expect that they'll protect your digital information, but there's like startups that are supposed to be providing age verification, and they don't have the lineage of a Google or a Microsoft in protecting data and the sort of cybersecurity fortresses that they are. It's quite scary.
Yeah, I feel you. Got anything else for us, Tune?
I mean, one of the last things you said is AI even profitable? Report out of MIT. I mean, that's like kind of one of the most striking things with, the progress that we're seeing in AI. And there's some very significant critiques. There's a podcaster and writer, Ed Zitron, who's basically analyzed the crap out of the AI industry, and many people, himself included, refer to it as a bubble. But it's just like, I saw reporting recently that we are sort of experiencing some features of a recession, with like unemployment and inflation, and there's a lot of concern of like entering stagflation, but various other features of the economy are holding up. And a lot of people are saying, or at least some recent reporting is saying, that the expenditures into AI that the big tech companies are infusing into the economy is actually holding it up. So, it's like, on one hand, it's good that we're not collapsing because the tech companies are, throwing a shit ton of money into the economy for this one purpose. But it's also like, if the shit collapses, then we're really fucked, So it feels to me like a very, very much an open question as to the true profitability of, not just the tools themselves, but this like intense push into using AI for anything possible, and if it doesn't work out, like could make our economy fragile.
Yeah, damn, dude, that's an incredible point. I also had forgot to mention and discuss because, thinking of these, handful of companies at the top that are investing so much into AI, your Googles, your NVIDIA, et cetera, Apple.
Yeah.
They are making up, the top end of the a large piece of the bell curve that is the stock market. And everybody that has a 401k that's invested, bro, all your money is in that shit. That's where so if they fail, everybody is fucked. It is quite literally, well, everybody with a retirement plan, I guess I should say, is fucked. So it is a very precarious position that we are currently in. And I mean, in that regard, we all kind of have to root for this shit to succeed. We got to hope that shit work out, because if it doesn't, we're going to be living in that dystopian society. It will be Mad Max out here. So
NVIDIA is 77% of the S&P 500 in terms of market cap, which is crazy.
I want to
one company.
Yeah, I want to say the top 7, the big 7, and excluding fucking Tesla, because fuck Tesla right now. They are bigger than like the other, top 300 behind them.
Yeah,
combined, it's quite significant.
Yeah, actually, I think that Magnificent 7 is like 60% of the S&P 500.
Yes,
all of them together. I mean, that is crazy. Yes,
we have mortgaged our futures on a handful of people to succeed and not fuck that shit up. So
yeah,
I mean, we'll see. I guess we will see. Huh?
And the leader of the pack, at least in terms of ideology and rhetoric, is Scam Altman. Which, oh, by the way, plug a book that I audiobooked or read by audiobook, Empire of AI by Karen Howe, which discusses the whole entire AI industry, and she uses this analogy of AI companies and the big tech companies are forms of empire in the modern era, and therefore that means all of the problems and all of the consequences of empires is also inherent in these organizations. And she also does a deep dive into OpenAI and Scam Altman as well in the book. But fantastic book. I'm pretty sure this book is going to win hella awards. I've watched like 12 or 15 like book talk episodes or podcast episodes of her talking about the book, because the shit's super fascinating to me. But I think her analysis is very on point, and she doesn't refer to Sam Altman as Scam Altman, but the tenor of her book, the theme, is that he is Scam Altman.
I feel it. I mean, you can't trust them. They are all. I mean, it's capitalism. It is, it's late stage capitalism. They're all driving towards a cliff as fast as we possibly can and hoping, for the best, to be able to build an airplane out of, the companies that they're creating. And that shit not going to work out even if it works out for some, it's not going to work out for a lot of people, I think. But, we'll be all right. We're going to figure that shit out today. I'm working on it. Okay. I'm working on the solutions right now. I'm in the lab. Literally, doing some data analysis. We'll figure it out. I maybe next podcast I will have some answers for you.
Herschel, lift us out of oblivion and into salvation.
It might have to be H5. He might have to put the team on his back. I don't know. I'm trying to train him up in the ways of a scientist, and we will see. But that's pretty much all I got here. Any other thoughts you wanted to add, Tone?
Nah, man, those are my thoughts, man. Glad to get it out, man, which is the best part of doing the podcast is, you can
indeed
bring out some of these things that are, in your mind and bouncing around in your mind for so long,
Yes. Listeners, let us know. Let us know what your thoughts are. Let me know what fucking AI media I missed that you love and fuck with. Hit us up on Twitter. #, at RTBTH. On Twitter, or we're calling it Twitter. Fuck X. Actually, don't even use Twitter. God, I hate sending.
Hey,
people
well, we're on YouTube. We're on YouTube.
We're also on YouTube. We're also on YouTube.
I post clips on YouTube now.
Excellent.
So #RTBTH. Just Google search that, and you'll find us.
Yes. All right. Peace.
#RTBTH. Real talk beyond the headlines. We out. We out.
Okay, give me a second to breathe.